Have you ever looked in the mirror and thought, something has changed, but I can't quite explain what it is? Maybe you're more tired than you used to be. Maybe you're waking up several times during the night, even when you went to bed early. Maybe your waistline is changing, your joints feel different, or you're suddenly forgetting little things that used to come easily. And perhaps the most frustrating part is what you hear from other people. Don't worry, you're just getting older. But what if that isn't the whole story? If you're a woman over 50, especially after menopause, your body can go through changes that are completely understandable, but that doesn't mean every change should simply be ignored. Some changes are a normal part of aging. Others can be clues that your body needs more attention. And today, we're going to talk about 7 hidden health changes women over 50 should never casually dismiss. We'll talk about changes in your energy, your waistline, your bones, your sleep, and even your memory. But I especially want you to stay with me for number 6, because some heart-related symptoms in women may not always look the way you expect. And number 7 is something many women may notice, but assume is simply part of getting older, when it deserves to be discussed with a healthcare professional. Now, this video is not here to scare you. It's here to help you become more aware of your own body. Because getting older does not mean you stop listening to what your body is telling you. So before you blame everything on age, there are 7 changes you should know about. And as we go through each one, I want you to ask yourself one simple question. Have I noticed this change in myself? Because sometimes, recognizing a change is the first step toward taking better care of yourself. So, if you've noticed that your body doesn't quite feel the same after 50, there may be a reason. And understanding that reason can make a big difference. One of the biggest changes is what happens to estrogen. During the years leading up to menopause, estrogen levels gradually change, and after menopause, they remain much lower than they were during the reproductive years. Now, estrogen does much more than regulate the menstrual cycle. It interacts with many systems throughout the body. That's one reason some women notice changes in sleep, body composition, bones, mood, or other aspects of their health around and after menopause. But there's something important to understand. Menopause itself is not a disease. It is a natural stage of life. The problem comes when we use the word menopause as an explanation for absolutely everything, because sometimes a symptom really is related to hormonal changes, and sometimes something else is going on. There's another change that happens with aging that deserves attention. Muscle mass gradually decreases. You may not notice it at first. You simply realize that carrying groceries feels a little harder. Getting up from a low chair takes more effort. Walking up a flight of stairs leaves you more tired than it used to. That isn't necessarily because you suddenly became old. Your body naturally tends to lose muscle as you age, especially if you aren't regularly challenging those muscles. And that matters because muscle isn't just about looking strong. It helps you maintain balance, mobility, independence, and the ability to do everyday things. Then, there are your bones. After menopause, declining estrogen levels are one factor associated with increased bone loss, and bone density can decrease with age. The tricky part? You may not feel your bones becoming weaker. There may be no warning pain, no obvious signal. Sometimes, the first sign is a fracture after what seemed like a minor fall. That is why bone health deserves attention before a problem happens, not only afterward. And then there's the change many women notice when they put on an old pair of jeans. Their weight may not have changed dramatically, but their body shape has. Fat distribution can shift toward the abdomen, while muscle mass may gradually decline. This can happen because of a combination of aging, hormonal changes, activity levels, sleep, nutrition, and changes in how much energy your body uses. So, if your body seems to respond differently to the same habits you had at 40, you're not necessarily imagining it. Sleep can change too. Some women experience hot flashes or night sweats. Others find themselves waking up repeatedly or struggling to stay asleep. And poor sleep can create a frustrating cycle. You sleep poorly, then you feel tired, you move less, you may crave different foods, your mood suffers, and the next night, sleeping well becomes even harder. Finally, there is your heart health. After menopause, cardiovascular risk changes, and factors such as blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar, smoking, physical activity, and body composition become especially important to pay attention to. This doesn't mean every woman will develop heart disease. It means your 50s and 60s are a valuable time to become more proactive. Think of menopause as a turning point, not a deadline. It's an opportunity to stop assuming that every new symptom is simply part of getting older and start asking a better question. What is my body trying to tell me? And that question brings us to the first hidden change on our list, because if you're constantly exhausted, even when you think you're getting enough rest, you shouldn't automatically blame your age. Let's talk about fatigue. Let me ask you something. Have you ever slept for what seemed like a reasonable amount of time, opened your eyes in the morning, and still felt completely exhausted? Not just a little sleepy, but the kind of tiredness where you think, why do I feel like I haven't rested at all? Maybe you make your morning coffee, hoping it will finally wake you up. Then another cup, and by early afternoon, you're already looking at the clock, wondering how you're going to make it through the rest of the day. Simple things can suddenly feel like work. You don't feel like going for a walk. You put off household chores. You have less motivation to meet friends. And sometimes, even the things you normally enjoy don't seem as appealing. If this sounds familiar, please don't immediately tell yourself, well, I'm over 50. I guess this is just what aging feels like. Sometimes it is related to getting older. But persistent or unusual fatigue can have many different causes. For some women, the problem may be as simple as poor quality sleep. You may technically spend 7 or 8 hours in bed, but if you're waking repeatedly throughout the night, dealing with hot flashes, or struggling with another sleep problem, your body may not be getting the restorative sleep it needs. Another possibility is anemia, particularly when iron levels are low. Some women may also experience fatigue related to thyroid problems, which can affect energy, metabolism, mood, and many other aspects of how you feel. And don't forget medications. Some medications can contribute to tiredness or drowsiness. That's one reason it's worth reviewing your medications with a healthcare professional rather than simply accepting constant fatigue as your new normal. Stress can play a role too. If you're caring for a spouse, helping adult children, managing work, dealing with financial pressure, or simply carrying a lot emotionally, your body can feel that burden. Depression can also sometimes show up as exhaustion, low motivation, changes in sleep, or losing interest in activities you once enjoyed. And there's another condition that often goes unnoticed: sleep apnea. You might think sleep apnea is mainly about loud snoring. But interrupted breathing during sleep can leave someone feeling exhausted during the day, even after spending plenty of time in bed. So here's the important point. Fatigue is a symptom, not a diagnosis. You don't need to panic because you're tired, but you also shouldn't ignore a major change that persists, gets worse, or interferes with your everyday life. Start paying attention. When does the fatigue happen? Is it worse in the morning or afternoon? How well are you sleeping? Have you recently started a medication? Has your mood changed? Are you becoming short of breath with activities that used to feel easy? And most importantly, is this a temporary tired spell or has it become your new normal? Writing down these changes can make it much easier to explain what you're experiencing when you speak with your healthcare professional. Because sometimes, identifying the cause of fatigue can uncover something that is treatable. And even when the cause is simply a combination of aging, sleep, activity, and lifestyle, understanding what's happening gives you something you can actually work on. So don't be afraid to say, this doesn't feel like my normal tiredness. Your body doesn't need you to diagnose it. It needs you to pay attention. And if fatigue is frustrating, the next change can be even more frustrating because you may feel like your body suddenly stopped responding the way it used to. Let's talk about your waistline, metabolism, and the changes many women notice after 50. Have you noticed something frustrating? You look at an old photograph of yourself and think, I don't remember my waist looking like that. Maybe your weight hasn't changed dramatically. Maybe you're eating almost the same foods you've eaten for years, and yet your clothes fit differently. Your waist seems thicker, your stomach feels softer, and suddenly the jeans that used to fit comfortably are spending more time in the back of the closet. If this sounds familiar, you're definitely not alone. But here's something important. Don't assume that one single thing is responsible. After menopause, several changes can happen at the same time. Hormonal changes can influence where the body tends to store fat. At the same time, muscle mass naturally tends to decline with age, especially when we're less physically active. And here's the frustrating part. Muscle is metabolically active tissue. So when you gradually lose muscle and become less active, your body may use less energy than it did when you were younger. That means the same eating habits that once maintained your weight may not produce exactly the same result later in life. And then there's sleep. Poor sleep can affect hunger, energy, mood, and the choices we make throughout the day. Think about it. When you're exhausted, are you really in the mood to prepare a balanced meal and take a long walk? Or does the easiest option suddenly sound much more appealing? That's why trying to solve everything by simply eating less isn't always the best approach. Instead, think about what you can add to your routine. One of the most valuable additions is strength training. You don't necessarily need a gym or heavy weights. Depending on your abilities and health, simple resistance exercises can help you maintain and build muscle. And muscle matters not just for your waistline, but for strength, balance, mobility, and independence. Walking is another simple habit worth keeping. A daily walk can support physical activity, cardiovascular health, mood, and overall fitness. Then look at your meals. Try to include nutritious sources of protein throughout the day, along with vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and other minimally processed foods that fit your individual needs. And don't underestimate consistency. You don't need a perfect diet on Monday and then give up by Wednesday. A reasonable routine that you can actually maintain is much more useful than a dramatic plan that lasts 2 weeks. Sleep matters too. If you're consistently sleeping poorly, don't treat that as an insignificant inconvenience. Work on a regular sleep schedule, address factors that interfere with sleep, and talk with a healthcare professional if persistent sleep problems are affecting your daily life. And remember that your waistline isn't the only measurement that matters. Your strength, blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol, fitness, and overall health are important too. Regular health checkups can help you understand what is actually changing inside your body rather than judging your health entirely by what you see in the mirror. And please be skeptical of anyone promising that one food, one drink, one powder, or one secret ingredient will magically erase belly fat after 50. Your body deserves better than miracle promises. It deserves a sustainable plan. So, let me ask you something. Have you noticed your waistline changing even though you don't feel like you're eating much differently? If you have, you're not necessarily doing everything wrong. Your body may simply be responding differently than it did 20 years ago. And that brings us to another change that you can't always see in the mirror. Because while your waistline may be changing on the outside, something much quieter can be happening on the inside. Your bones. Now let's talk about something you cannot always see happening. Your bones. Most of us think about our bones only when something goes wrong. Maybe someone falls and breaks a hip. Maybe they fracture a wrist, or maybe a doctor tells them after an X-ray or bone density test that their bones have become weaker. But here's the surprising part. Your bones don't always warn you when they're becoming weaker. There may be no obvious pain, no burning sensation, no alarm telling you that your bone density is changing. And that's one reason bone health becomes especially important as women get older. Think about your skeleton as the framework that holds your entire body together. Your bones help you stand upright. They protect important organs, they provide support when you walk, and they work together with your muscles to help you remain independent. So when bone strength declines, the issue isn't simply about avoiding a fracture. It's also about protecting your ability to move confidently and safely. One clue you may notice is losing height. Perhaps you used to be a little taller than you are now. A small change can happen naturally with aging, but noticeable or progressive height loss deserves attention. Another clue can be a change in posture. You may notice yourself becoming more stooped or rounded forward. Persistent back pain can also deserve evaluation, particularly when it is new, severe, or unexplained. And then there's something especially important: a fracture after a minor fall or a seemingly small injury. If a simple fall results in a broken bone, don't just think, "I'm getting older." It may be worth discussing your bone health with your healthcare professional. The good news is that there are things you can do to support your bones. One of them is weight-bearing physical activity. Walking, for example, can be a useful part of an active lifestyle. Depending on your health and abilities, resistance exercises can also help maintain muscle strength and support your overall physical function. And remember what we talked about earlier? Muscle and bone health are connected to the way you move. Stronger muscles can help support balance and mobility, which can also help reduce the risk of falls. Nutrition matters too. Calcium-rich foods can be part of a healthy eating pattern. Depending on your individual situation, vitamin D may also be important for bone health. But don't assume that taking large amounts of supplements is automatically better. Your nutritional needs can vary, and it's worth discussing supplements with a healthcare professional, particularly if you take medications or have other health conditions. Then there's fall prevention. Look around your home. Are there loose rugs, poor lighting, clutter on the stairs, something you could easily trip over? These may seem like small details, but preventing a fall can be incredibly important as we get older. And if you're at increased risk for osteoporosis, Ask your healthcare professional whether you need a bone density test or other evaluation based on your age and risk factors. Don't wait for a fracture to become the first conversation about your bones. Your goal isn't to become afraid of falling. Your goal is to become stronger, steadier, and more aware. Because healthy aging isn't simply about adding years to your life. It's about protecting the ability to use those years, to get up from a chair, to walk through the grocery store, to climb the stairs, to pick up your grandchildren, to travel, to live independently. And sometimes, protecting that independence starts with something you cannot even see. Your bones don't always warn you when they're becoming weaker, but your body may give you other clues. And there's another change that can affect almost every part of your day, from your mood and energy to your memory and heart health, your sleep. Because if you're waking up night after night and telling yourself, "This is just what happens after 50, you may want to hear what comes next. Now we need to talk about something much more serious. Your heart. And I want to be very clear from the beginning. This section is not meant to scare you. It is meant to help you recognize something that could matter when every minute counts. Many people picture a heart attack as one dramatic moment. A person suddenly grabs their chest, collapses, and everyone immediately knows what's happening. Real life isn't always that obvious. And for women, heart-related symptoms can sometimes be less stereotypical. You may experience pressure, squeezing, heaviness, or discomfort in your chest, but you might also notice something else first. Maybe you're suddenly much more short of breath than usual. Maybe you're unusually exhausted after an activity that normally feels easy. Maybe you feel nauseated. You may break out in an unusual sweat. Or you may notice discomfort in your jaw, back, neck, shoulders, or arms. The important thing is not to memorize one perfect list of symptoms. It's to recognize when something feels unusual, sudden, severe, or different from your normal experience. Think about this example. You've walked the same distance around your neighborhood for years. One day, you notice that you're unusually short of breath. You stop and rest. It gets better. So you think, maybe I'm just tired today. Then it happens again. Perhaps you feel pressure in your chest, or an unusual heaviness. Maybe you're nauseated or sweating. At that point, don't simply assume it's indigestion, stress, or getting older. You need to take the possibility of a heart problem seriously, and this is especially important because women sometimes underestimate their own symptoms. They may be busy taking care of everyone else. They're thinking about their spouse, their children, their grandchildren, their work, their household, and they tell themselves, "I'll deal with it later." But your health cannot always wait for a convenient time. Please remember this. If you have severe or sudden chest discomfort, significant difficulty breathing, fainting, or symptoms that may indicate a heart attack, seek emergency medical care immediately. Do not wait to see whether it goes away. Do not spend an hour searching online for the perfect explanation. And don't wait for tomorrow if your symptoms are happening now and are concerning. A YouTube video can educate you. It cannot examine you. It cannot check your heart rhythm. It cannot measure your blood pressure. And it cannot tell you from across a screen whether your symptoms are an emergency. That's why recognizing warning signs matters, and prevention matters too. Know your blood pressure, know your cholesterol numbers when your healthcare professional recommends testing. Pay attention to blood sugar if you're at risk. Don't smoke. Stay physically active according to your abilities. Eat a balanced, nutritious diet, get enough sleep, and keep up with regular medical care. You don't need to become obsessed with your heart. You simply need to stop treating your heart as something you only think about when you're sick, because cardiovascular health is something you can work on every day. And remember this, your heart does not care whether you are busy. If your body is sending an emergency signal, it deserves an immediate response. So please don't let fear stop you from seeking help. And don't let embarrassment stop you either. It is far better to have a concerning symptom evaluated and discover that it wasn't a heart attack than to ignore a potentially dangerous symptom because you were afraid of overreacting. Your life is worth taking seriously. And there is still one final category of changes we need to discuss, because sometimes the warning isn't one dramatic symptom. Sometimes it's a collection of small changes that slowly become your new normal, and that's where number 7 becomes especially important. And now we've reached the final warning sign. And honestly, this one may be the easiest to miss, because sometimes your body doesn't give you one dramatic symptom. Instead, it gives you small changes. One today, another next week, and another a month later. And because each change seems minor on its own, you tell yourself, it's probably nothing. But here's the lesson I want you to remember. One symptom may not tell the whole story. Patterns tell a bigger story. Maybe you've noticed that you're becoming weaker. You used to carry the grocery bags without thinking about it. Now you need to make 2 trips. You used to get out of a chair easily. Now you have to push yourself up with your hands. You used to climb the stairs without stopping. Now you need a break halfway up. These changes may happen gradually, which makes them easy to overlook, but increasing weakness or difficulty with everyday activities deserves attention. Another example is frequent falling or feeling increasingly unsteady. One stumble can happen to anyone, but if you're repeatedly losing your balance, grabbing furniture as you walk through the house, or becoming afraid of stairs, don't simply accept it as getting older. There may be something contributing to the problem that can be evaluated. Then there's unexplained weight change. If you're intentionally changing your diet and becoming more active, weight loss may make sense. But if your weight is changing significantly without an obvious reason, it's worth discussing with a healthcare professional. The same applies to persistent swelling, particularly when it's new or unexplained. And don't ignore new pain or pain that keeps getting worse. Pain can have many causes, and most causes aren't something catastrophic. But persistent, worsening, or unexplained pain deserves a proper evaluation rather than endless self-treatment. You should also pay attention to significant changes in your bowel or bladder habits. Perhaps something that was normal for you suddenly isn't. Again, that doesn't automatically mean something serious is happening. It simply means your body has changed, and a healthcare professional may be able to determine why. And there is one symptom I especially want women after menopause to remember. Bleeding after menopause should not simply be dismissed as normal. But because some causes require prompt attention, it's important not to assume it's simply part of aging. This is exactly why awareness matters. We're not trying to diagnose ourselves from a list on the internet. We're learning to recognize when something has changed enough to deserve a conversation with a medical professional. Think about your body like a dashboard in your car. One little light flashing once might not tell you exactly what's happening. You pay attention, you find out what's happening. Your body deserves the same respect. So look back over the last few months. Have you become weaker? Are you falling more often? Has your weight changed unexpectedly? Are you experiencing persistent swelling or pain? Have your bowel or bladder habits changed? Or have you experienced bleeding after menopause? Don't panic, but don't automatically dismiss it either. Just take 5 minutes and ask yourself 7 questions. Number 1, energy. Has my energy noticeably changed? Am I tired more often than I used to be? Do normal activities suddenly require much more effort? Number 2, strength. Am I becoming weaker? Is it harder to get out of a chair, carry groceries, climb stairs? Number 4, memory. Are memory or concentration problems affecting my daily life? Occasional forgetfulness happens. But if you're repeatedly forgetting important things or struggling with familiar tasks, make a note of it. Number 6, heart. Am I experiencing unusual shortness of breath, chest pressure, or other symptoms that concern me? If you are experiencing severe or sudden symptoms that could indicate a medical emergency, don't wait. Seek emergency medical care. And number 7, bleeding. Have I experienced vaginal bleeding after menopause? If the answer is yes, don't automatically assume it's normal aging. Make an appointment with your healthcare professional and have it evaluated. Now here's the most important part. Don't just answer these questions in your head and forget about them. If you've noticed something that concerns you, write it down. Write down when it started, how often it happens, whether it's getting better or worse, and anything else that seems connected. And remember, a change doesn't automatically mean something is wrong, but a persistent or concerning change deserves to be noticed. So take 5 minutes, listen to your body, write down what you've noticed. And if something doesn't feel right, don't be afraid to ask for help. Because taking your health seriously isn't being dramatic, it's taking care of yourself. Remember the woman we talked about at the beginning? She woke up tired. She wasn't sleeping the way she used to. Her body was changing. She was forgetting little things, and perhaps she kept telling herself, maybe this is just what getting older feels like. But now you know something important. Getting older doesn't mean you should ignore your body. It doesn't mean every new symptom is dangerous, and it certainly doesn't mean you should live in fear of every little change. The real lesson is much simpler. Pay attention. Notice when your energy changes. Notice when your strength changes. Notice when your sleep changes. Notice when your memory starts interfering with everyday life. Notice changes in your weight, your balance, your pain, your heart symptoms, or anything else that doesn't feel like your normal self. And when something concerns you, don't be afraid to ask questions. You don't have to know exactly what's wrong. You just have to notice when something has changed and have the courage to ask why. Because your 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond can still be years filled with strength, independence, meaningful experiences, and joy. Taking care of yourself isn't about trying to stop aging. It's about giving yourself the best opportunity to age well. So now I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, which of these changes have you noticed after 50? Your answer might help another woman realize that she isn't alone and that it's okay to ask for help. And if this video helped you understand your body a little better, share it with a woman you love. Sometimes one conversation can encourage someone to finally get the care they need. Take care of yourself, listen to your body, and remember, getting older is inevitable. Ignoring your health is not.